So now the bad news. In 2011, there was a Canadian study, and it looked at blood of pregnant women, non-pregnant women, and unborn fetuses. And they were looking for Bt toxin. Now remember, the EPA promised that the Bt toxin was destroyed during digestion, so no Bt toxin should be in the blood of human beings. But it was found in 2/3 of the female subjects that were not pregnant, 93% of those that were pregnant, and 80% of their unborn fetuses. Now the unborn fetuses, if it gets into their bloodstream, they have no blood-brain barrier well developed, and so it might get into their brains as well. So we have a situation where we're exposing humans and children who are most at risk at their most vulnerable time to this Bt toxin from Monsanto's corn. Now, the Bt toxin should wash out of the blood on a regular basis. So how come 93% of the subjects in the study, the pregnant women, had Bt in their blood? They don't eat a lot of corn tortillas every day in Canada, but people do eat meat and milk, and the animals that produce the meat and milk eat genetically modified corn in large volume every single day. So the authors of the study speculated that the Bt toxin found in the blood of humans came from eating the animals, the meat and milk from the animals that were eating genetically modified Bt corn. Now I think a more plausible explanation is that the Bt genes had colonized the gut bacteria of these women and were producing Bt toxin on a regular basis. So here, that's just some of the ways in which Bt or Roundup or GMOs in general are linked to digestive disorders in terms of the structure and function of the cell walls in the intestinal tract and whatnot, how they can cause ulcerations and inflammation of the stomach, how the gut bacteria may be modified and changed. But so we don't know for sure whether these are mechanisms that promote autism, because there's not enough studies. In fact, people may blame vaccines, they may blame genetic origins. There's a lot of things that may be blamed. So our Institute for Responsible Technology is creating an opportunity to find out more by asking people to provide case studies. So please take autistic children off of GMOs, write down the impact before, during, after, and send it to us at healthy@responsibletechnology.org. That's healthy@responsibletechnology.org. Now, scientists and doctors are not waiting for these research studies to come through. For example, the American Academy of Environmental Medicine looked at the animal feeding studies and found so many reproductive problems, immune system problems, accelerated aging, organ damage, gastrointestinal problems, dysfunctional regulation of cholesterol and insulin, that they actually say all doctors should prescribe non-GMO diets to everyone. And the Lyme-Induced Autism Foundation also suggested that parents take their children off of GMOs. Now, I talked to one mother of an autistic child, and she said that she found that at a certain point in her regimen, she switched her son to casein-free and dairy-free and mostly organic, and there was about an 80% improvement. And people would say, God, what did you do? And she said, well, he's casein-free, he's dairy-free, and he's 80% organic. And she said this a few times, and she realized she was saying 80% recovered, 80% organic. And it like dawned on her and saying, we need to be 100% organic. So at that point, she took all non-organic ingredients out of his diet, and he's almost, she says, 95% recovered at this point. He's all of a sudden, he got social and was able to interact with other kids. So this clued her in that something in the organic food is a big difference. And of course, she and her husband are now organic. And of course, organic does not allow the use of GMOs. And so it may be by removing the GMOs from the diet, it closed the gap between the 80 or the 95% recovered. Now, we don't know if it's the GMO or not. I've talked to many, many people who've been prescribed non-GMO diets by their doctors and have found improvements in weight problems, in skin problems, in irritable bowel, in migraines, and all sorts of immune or digestive disorders. But if you ask them how did they avoid GMOs, Sometimes it's by switching to organic. Sometimes it's by going to less processed foods. So we don't actually know if it's the non-GMO that's causing the problem because there's a cofactor. But when you talk to the farmers and you talk to the veterinarians and they take the same animals and the only change they make is take the GM feed and substitute non-GM feed, and there's changes in the behavior and the infectious diseases, the immune system problems, the variable weight size, the litter size, the conception rate, the diarrhea, and when they switch back to GM, all the problems come back, and then they realize it's the GMOs, and they switch back to non-GM, and the problems go away. That is far more convincing, and it's something, and I don't want to do that kind of experiment on humans. So please, share information with us at the Institute for Responsible Technology. Now, to avoid GMOs, we recommend that you go to non-GMOshoppingguide.com. Some of you are like demanding by now, what's the GMOs? How do we avoid it? So if you go to non-GMOshoppingguide.com, we explain how to do it. Also, you can download the iPhone application Shop No GMO. There are 9 genetically modified food crops: soy, corn, cottonseed oil from cotton, canola oil from canola, sugar from sugar beets, papaya from Hawaii or China, a little zucchini, a little crookneck squash, and alfalfa used as hay for animals. There's also dairy products from animals injected with genetically engineered bovine growth hormone, which does increase a hormone in the milk that's linked to cancer. Also, there's some products that are created from genetically modified microorganisms, most importantly aspartame. Just Google aspartame symptoms, camp out for a few hours, never use aspartame again. And there's also the milk and meat of animals that have been fed GMOs, and not a single study has been done to see if that causes problems in human beings. In fact, if you look at the documents, the secret documents that were made public from a lawsuit that were the file of the FDA about GMOs, you can read the Center for Veterinary Medicine's warning saying that eating milk and meat from animals fed GMOs carries unique health risks. Remember, toxins can bioaccumulate in animals and be in higher concentrations in the meat and milk than it is in the actual plants. By the way, those secret memos from the FDA also revealed why GMOs are on the market, and that was on the basis of deception and fraud. The overwhelming consensus among the scientists at the FDA were that GMOs were dangerous and could cause damaging allergens, toxins, new diseases, and nutritional problems. They repeatedly urged their superiors to require long-term study, but were ignored. And the reason why they were ignored was that the White House had instructed the FDA to promote biotechnology, so the FDA created a new position for the person in charge of policy, Michael Taylor. And he was Monsanto's former attorney. Monsanto's the big biotech company. He went to the position in charge of policy, ignored the scientific warnings, created the policy which claimed, falsely, that the agency was not aware of any information showing that GMOs were significantly different. Therefore, not a single safety study was necessary. The same company, Monsanto, that told us that PCBs, Agent Orange, and DDT were safe before they were taken off the market and they were fined and convicted of lying. That's the same company that can determine if our foods are safe and put them on the market without even telling the FDA or consumers. So, and then of course Michael Taylor went and worked for Monsanto as their vice president of marketing, vice president for government affairs, and became their chief lobbyist. And now the Obama administration has put him back in the FDA as the U.S. food safety czar. So I don't think we should be asking the current Obama administration to bail us out of GMOs. I think we have to do it ourselves. And I'll finally end on some good news, because there's been a lot of bad news so far. But the good news is this: the tide is turning. And we think as little as 5% of U.S. shoppers avoiding GM ingredients could create a tipping point of consumer rejection, turning it into a marketing liability to kick it out of the U.S. market. That's how it was kicked out of Europe. That's how bovine growth hormone was kicked out of Walmart, Starbucks, Yoplait, Dan, and most American dairies. And now there are so many millions of people that are becoming aware of these health dangers about GMOs. We think it's just a matter of time before they're kicked out completely. I think what will accelerate that is the ballot initiative in California that will be requiring labeling of GMOs in that state, because most Americans say that if GMOs were labeled, they would avoid them. So whether it's through labeling or simple consumer rejection by using our non-GMO shopping guide, we think that we won't have to worry about GMOs for the rest of our lives, but in short order, together, we will reclaim a non-GMO food supply. Safe eating.